I'd like to open this session with a couple of my favorite tips, which actually come from 𝐼𝐸 members. So the first one is from 𝐟𝐸, who is one of our ambassadors now. She's a Brit living in Spain. She was at the Zoom yesterday. And her secret to success is quite simply to treat sobriety like a job. I still remember her on her very first Zoom meeting. She sat there and cried. She was just so low with the drinking and the problem and trying and not succeeding. But she decided, after we managed to motivate her, that she was going to treat it like a job. And she was retired, so she had relatively unstructured days. And she literally spent every day going through a little bit like you're going to be doing this week. And she did it again and again until it stuck. And now she's 4 years sober and she's feeling and looking amazing. And a similar tip from Lisa in the US, who she said, I remember I had her on a Zoom meeting celebrating her first soberversary. And I said, tell us your best tip. And she says, my best tip is that in those early months, you have to obsess about your sobriety. And it's true. And I think I said it yesterday in the welcome talk, but with this reset week, you can't just pop in for 5 minutes now and again and not do the stuff. Monica's just very kindly posted a checklist. So you'll need to do those things every day if you want to make a change this week. And those ladies, being 𝐟𝐸 and Lisa, they're both thriving in their alcohol-free lives. And they got there simply by working really hard in the early stages. And it is hard. And that's when the craving and the low mood come in. But it's a matter of pushing through and pushing through. Because if you cave, like many of us have done, in those early stages and you think, oh, I'll just have to try again, all you're doing is the most difficult and unpleasant bit again and again. Whereas push through the difficulty, have a group, be with a group, lean on that group, and it's like pushing through a barrier. You will get through the difficult times and then the benefits will start coming in. And once you experience the joy of waking up early, feeling great and having more energy and enjoying life a lot more, then you won't want to lose all that. And that's why it eventually sticks. You've just got to throw the book at your sobriety, and that's what we're helping you to do this week. So thank you to those of you that did the task workshop today and posted your replies. If you haven't yet done that, then please do, because we've got our lovely ambassadors and Monica and myself, and we're looking and we'll try to post replies on the group. So everybody will get responses. But the more we learn about you, the more we can tailor this week to your needs. So Monica's posted a space for your answers for today's task. And she's also done a checklist, this checklist that I just referred to. So she's saying every day, just make sure that you've done the task and posted your results on the group. Listen to the podcast, read the article, because every day we have a theme, and today's theme is changing your thinking about drinking. So the podcast was about busting sobriety myths. The article was called Changing Your Thinking About Drinking. So make sure that you make some comments and also look at other people's comments. Because first of all, you'll think, oh yeah, I feel like that sometimes as well. And please respond to each other, because it's not just about the Tribe Sober team and you, it's about you supporting each other. Have you filled in your tracker yet? There must be quite a few alcohol-free hours on it by now. Have you watched the training? And have you stayed alcohol-free? So that's what you need to look at the end of each day. So remember, do the work, treat sobriety like a job in those first few months. And you'll need to allocate at least an hour a day to the boot camp. Do the task, watch the training, listen to the podcast while you're out and about, and do some reading as well. So some of your comments, I just picked out one from Heidi from the US. Her confidence score, do you remember we asked you what your confidence score was out of 10 getting through the week? And she's already at an 8. And she's already got 54 days alcohol free. And she signed up for our Breaking Free program. So that's what I mean about treating it like a job. That's exactly what Heidi's done. So well done, Heidi. You are so going to succeed, and we're so looking forward to working with you. Celine, confidence score of 7. Now, she tends to reach for a drink when she's tired or as a reward. And we all get into that loop, don't we? And it's all about rewiring our brain. We have to find other ways to reward ourselves and then use that other thing again and again. So we build a new habit. And as for drinking when you're tired, it's just about the worst thing that you can do, because alcohol drains your energy. Caroline's got confidence score. I think Caroline's here. Caroline was a whiskey drinker, so we're going to have to get you together with Lynn. Lynn was a whiskey drinker. She's got a confidence score of 9 for the week, which is great. But what's not so great is she says that drops to 2 after the week. So we've got to help you to keep this thing going, Caroline. So I would venture that if that's the case, and you did explain that you have had a period of sobriety and then dropped it, I think there's plenty of mindset work that is needed as far as you're concerned, because you obviously still see alcohol as something desirable. So you think, I'll stop for a bit and then I'll treat myself and go back to the alcohol. We have to change that, and it doesn't happen overnight. We have to be patient. Yeah, Yvonne made me smile because we asked you what was standing in your way. And she says she's worried about just saying fuck it. So yeah, we recognize that at Tribe Sober, and we call it the fuck it buckets. And we've all fallen into that bucket at various times. But having said that, she's got a great strategy. She's going to start putting herself first and stop going along with the crowd and being a people pleaser. And I think many of us drinkers were people pleasers. I know that I was. And Granya's got a lovely story about creating boundaries, which she will tell you at some point. Who else? Yeah, it was Sharon. Now, Sharon's 62 and she's drinking a bottle of wine a night. Sharon, I quit at the age of 63 and I was also drinking a bottle of wine a night. And that was 10 years ago. And it was the best decision I ever made in my life. I just want to share that with you and tell you that we're here and we would love to help you to change that. Because as we get older, the damage that this stuff does to our body and our brain gets more and more serious. It's the best thing you can do for your life as you get older. So that's just a few of the comments that caught my eye. Now let's get down to the training. So there's one thing that I'd like you to take away from today. There's just one thing I want you to remember. It's that this journey is not about willpower. And that is possibly where you've been going wrong in the past. I always used to do dry January to prove that I wasn't an alcoholic, of course. And then come February, I would drink twice as much and I would be white knuckling it and literally counting the days, using willpower, in other words. I like to use the underwater swimming analogy for willpower, because we can swim underwater for a while, not very far in my case, but some people can go a long way underwater. But eventually, even if they're the best underwater swimmer in the world, they have to come up for air. And I think that's like trying to be sober with willpower. We can stay sober for just so long that eventually the willpower will run out. And they've done a lot of research on willpower recently. You can Google it, and they now liken willpower to a muscle. It gets tired and it does work for a short time, And that's why you probably can get through the odd dry January, or you can certainly get started on this journey with willpower, but it's not sustainable. You'll get to that point where you'll think, oh, I can just have one, and we'll know where it goes from there. So if it's not about willpower, what is it about? It's about changing the way that you think about alcohol so that you no longer see it as something desirable. And this will take time because we've all been brainwashed for decades. We've been manipulated by the alcohol industry, especially us women. And we've got societal norms pressurizing us. So it's very difficult. But once you accept the truth that it is just poison in very pretty bottles, you'll no longer see it as something you need willpower to resist. You'll think, oh, I tend to walk past people sometimes and they're all drinking a lot. And in my early days of sobriety, I'd be jealous, frankly. I'd think, oh, why can't I do that? I've really messed everything up for myself. These days, I think, oh, look at them poisoning themselves. And I almost feel sorry for them. But the way that we're going to help you to change your mindset this week is we're going to work with your subconscious mind. We want you to think about the limiting belief, the false beliefs that you have in your head about alcohol. Because if you can change those limiting beliefs, then you won't need willpower anymore and you won't need alcohol anymore. So let's unpack limiting beliefs. What is a limiting belief? I had to quit because of health reasons. So when I was given this news, because I had cancer and I knew it was going to come back if I carried on drinking a bottle of wine a day, my limiting belief when I got this news was that my life was over. I thought all the fun times have gone now. But I thought, I'm quite old now, so I'll just stay home and read books and lead a very quiet life. But I wasn't excited. I wasn't in a community that told me I should be excited, which we're telling you guys. I was downright depressed at the prospect of sobriety because I had no idea that I was going to gain so much more than I would lose. My personal limiting beliefs, and if yours are similar, please put them in the chat. I'd like to look at those. I believe that I need alcohol to socialize, to relax, to deal with stress, to have fun. So put your limiting beliefs in the comments. And how do we get these limiting beliefs in the first place? Of course, marketing. There was a headline in the English Guardian that I saw recently that I really liked. And it said champagne. I personally had a thing about champagne. And it said champagne is 10% ethanol, which is pretty much poison. It's what goes in petrol in your car. Champagne is 10% ethanol and 90% marketing. And I thought, my God, that is so true. And then there's the conditioning as we grow up. Even as children, I used to notice alcohol in my house. I used to see how jolly everybody got if they were drinking. And then I went away to college and, of course, to be away from home and to be with strange people that I didn't know. And there's lots of cheap alcohol. So the drinking certainly ramped up there. And then you get to work and there it is again, whatever job you're in. And I meet so many people in Tribe Sober and they say things like, oh, in my industry, everybody drinks. So I think it's just about every industry. I've never heard anyone say in my industry, nobody drinks alcohol, maybe in the church. But then you go to work, so there's always an occasion to drink. I had a dream job. I was HR director in Christie's auction house, and it was part of my job to take our high-flying art specialists out to lunch and check they were happy. And it always had to be a very fancy restaurant, and I had to buy them nice wines. So that was like every day. And then, of course, you get home, oh, I'm so tired, I need a drink. It was nonstop. And then some of us become mothers, and then here comes the mommy juice. Wine has become the ultimate parenting aid these days. midlife stress, then we get the empty nest syndrome, and even right into retirement, we're just being targeted at every single life stage by the alcohol industry, particularly women. Big alcohol spends trillions of dollars on marketing. And next time you watch a movie, just wait and see how long it is until the star of the show comes out. And by the star of the show, of course, alcohol. There'll be a glamorous lady with a massive glass of red wine, or the macho hero with his whiskey. This is placed in movies. So subliminally, we're thinking, oh, if I want to be a glamorous, high-flying female, I better get on the wine. It's incredible. And the result is that it's so normalized that then we get peer pressure thrown into the mix as well. Alcohol is the only drug we have to justify not taking. You can tell your friends you've given up smoking and they'll all congratulate you. Tell them you've given up drinking and completely different reaction. What I found helped me personally is I read up about all this marketing and how they do it and how they place things in the supermarket and how they use psychology. And I got really angry. And I think that's a good driver, actually. It worked for me because I thought, you've had enough of my money and ruined my health, big alcohol. You're not having any more. So conscious mind, our conscious mind knows that we're drinking too much. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. Knows that we want to change. But the limiting beliefs sit in your subconscious, not your conscious mind. And the subconscious is far more powerful than the conscious mind. Your subconscious is running the show, and it's working 24/7. When you're asleep, it's processing everything that's happening to you in the day. It's really powerful. So that's where we want to work with you this week. But what happens is we get this inner struggle. I used to have a constant dialogue going on in my head. I'd wake up with a hangover and I'd think, got to stop drinking. And then my subconscious would chip in and it'd say, but how are you going to have fun? You'll lose all your friends. And how are you going to relax? So you get this awful struggle, inner struggle, which feels like anxiety. And of course, you have to have a drink to calm the anxiety down, which doesn't work because, what do they say? Drinking alcohol is like pouring gasoline on your anxiety. I didn't know that then. So what can we do? We need to reprogram our subconscious. I think it's quite exciting, the neuroscience that's coming out these days. We can actually rewire our brains. Our alcohol rewires our brain, but the good news is that we can heal our brain and we can rewire it back to something like normality. I've interviewed a lot of neuroscientists for the podcast, and I've learned such a lot from them. And my favorite one said to me that when your brain is working well, it's like an orchestra playing a beautiful symphony. But when you ruin it with drink and drug, it's as if those notes are discordant. It just doesn't play properly anymore. And I said, what happens when you quit drinking? Because, of course, I was sober by then. I wanted some good news. She said, it will heal. And what's quite exciting is it might play a completely different symphony. So I thought that was encouraging. So let's reprogram our subconscious, because that is possible. I like to think of our subconscious as a bit like a computer, so we can put some new software in it. So overturning our limiting beliefs one by one. I can give you a personal example of how I overturned that belief that I couldn't socialize without alcohol. First of all, I questioned it intellectually and said to myself, I should be able to spend time with friends, family, people I like without drinking alcohol. So I wrote that down in my journal. And then I decided that I would have to implement behavior to back that up. So I socialized without alcohol. again and again. And it was excruciating to start with because I'd been socializing with alcohol since I was 16 years old. I had no social skills. I didn't know how to do small talk or anything like that. So I forced myself to go out again and again. I actually went out more than I usually did, but I treated it as an experiment. And sometimes I would run away after half an hour, but I would come back, I would get out my journal and I would write up that experiment, just like a scientist would. And I would note down, I would think, did I enjoy any part of that evening? And I would then try and identify things that I had enjoyed. And gradually I began to relax into it and it got better and better. And then one evening, I still remember about 3 months into it, we're all different, but it took me 3 months. And I was coming home in a cab and I was buzzing like I used to buzz from the alcohol because I'd had such a nice evening. And I was thinking, oh, I met this person, I'm going to have coffee with this lady and I'm going to read this book and I'm going to see this movie. And I was just buzzing. And that's the moment, I believe, that my subconscious accepted, yes, she can have fun without alcohol. And that was my turning point. And I'm not saying every evening after that was a ball, because it wasn't. There were still some excruciating evenings without alcohol, but it got easier and easier. So that's how I overturned that one limiting belief. So do it belief by belief. And sometimes you might need a coach to help you to identify what those beliefs are and then to agree with you what action you're going to take and then keep you accountable the next time you see how you go through that again. So on Thursday, you will be meeting our coach, Lynette, who can certainly help you with that kind of work. So as we overturn those limiting beliefs one by one, doesn't happen overnight, obviously, but keep at it and gradually you'll change your thinking about drinking and you just won't want it anymore. You'll no longer desire it. And isn't that better than white knuckling and feeling deprived until eventually the fuck it bucket comes along and you think, oh, I can just have one. We all know how that goes. So that's a little bit about what a limiting belief is, how we get them and how to change them. If you want to dive deeper into this topic, it's very interesting. I would recommend Annie Grace's book, This Naked Mind.